Hello everyone, Forest Focus. Tough times, Nottingham Forest fans staring not down the barrel of relegation, but certainly very worried about it. Sean Dyche sacked, so we're looking for our fourth manager of the season, which looks set to be Pereira. I've asked lots of people lots of questions over the last few days, so I thought I'd be partly lazy and partly seeking inspiration in asking you, the listeners, to fire some questions our way, and we shall do our best to answer them in the company of first four Mark Sutherns. Mark, afternoon, how are you?
I'm very well and optimistic about the future, which isn't like me, but I do feel that, the decision was the right one, and we can look forward now to hopefully a bid for survival that's successful.
Excellent. Optimistic, Mark. Love it. Steve Battlemuch, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm still reeling from Mark being optimistic. I'm a little bit more pessimistic than I normally am. I'm on the not quite sure it was the right decision, but I'm one of those that gets on with it and bring on the next man up, and looking forward also to going to Istanbul on Tuesday.
Yeah, it's funny how the mood's flipped for you guys. Yeah, and like you say, Steve will be there in Istanbul supporting the team. I'm sure everyone will be when push comes to shove, obviously. Just before we get into the questions, a couple of bits of news to box off. One around Matt Sells, one around Chris Wood that people might have seen. Matt Sells was named in the Europa League squad at the expense of Stefan Ortega, effectively. Given Sells' injury, which I think is going to keep him out for a while, Ortega's now been named in that squad according to the UEFA website for the Europa League. So that 25-man squad sees Sells replaced with Ortega, which, as I say, suggests that Sells is certainly going to miss the Fenerbahce tie and possibly a little longer. So that's one thing. Chris Wood has been speaking to media in New Zealand. Obviously, he's a big star there, and they need him for the World Cup. He was discussing his injury, and this was a quote that I saw online where he said, "It's getting better day by day, which is great. I've had positive news yesterday from the surgeon, so I can go on to the next stages. So it's better for my rehab." And interestingly, he says, "I'm thinking that I need to work hard to be able to get myself fit, right, and ready for the end of the season, and then onto the off season into next year. There's a lot that hangs on it and plays on it, the knee that is, but I've got to do the right thing to get fit and ready," which suggests he's barely going to play for us, if any, games before the end of the season, which probably isn't news, but confirms what we feared. But hopefully he can get back for the last 3 or 4 games, and we'll see how that goes. Right, let's get into the questions. The first bracket is on around the playing squad and what happens next season, depending on whether we stay up or go down. So I'll read them out and then I'll get the lads to give their opinions on it. Will B, channel member via Discord, says, "Given how miserable this season's been, even if we stay up, can we expect increased pressure from players and their agents for a move in the summer? Are we looking at a full rebuild rather than simply managing Anderson's inevitable departure?" Then Anna Hewson, a channel member as well, and also Stuart Benjamin on Twitter asked very similar. "If we manage to stay in the Premier League, which players will move on at the end of the season? And also, if we get relegated, do you think any of the first 11 in inverted commas will stay? And if so, which ones?" Mark, kick us off. How are you firstly viewing? Let's be optimistic, because you're optimistic, and say we stay up now. How many now Sean Dyche is gone, a reset, Vita Pereira comes in, no idea how he's going to do, but as we sit here right now, how are you hoping the squad will look in terms of departures in the summer?
I think it's inevitable Anderson goes, obviously. So I think it's going to be weird watching the last few games and 12 games that we've got, and also the World Cup. Proud that we've got a player in the England squad, but knowing that obviously when they return, he's going to be moving on if he's not moved on before the World Cup. So Anderson's gone. We know that. I think Gibbs White could potentially be a target again for clubs. I think that's pretty inevitable. But he's club captain, and we'd expect him to. We'd have a chance of retaining him. I guess the other name that's likely to catch a lot of interest is Murillo, who we should be prepared to lose. I expect. I do feel that the big clubs on the continent, if not in the Premier League, will look at Murillo again and look at his development. He's had a season stalled by injury, and obviously by the state of our season, it's perhaps hard to assess whether he's taken another stride. You could argue that he hasn't developed that much, but we know what the raw product there is outstanding. And, I'd be surprised if we get another season with Murillo in our squad. I'd love to see it, but he's such a unique player that I do think that we could replace him, not with a player like him, but with a good, solid, experienced Premier League centre-back, and perhaps a young centre-back acquisition as well coming through. So Anderson and Gibbs White, much harder to replace. But I think those 3 players are the ones that we should prepare ourselves to lose.
I'm not so sure about Murillo because, like you say, he hasn't had a great season. I think the thing with Murillo is it depends who would come in for him. He's left-footed, which I think makes him a more attractive proposition. So if a big club comes in for him, then I think he goes. I just wonder if they just put off and think, well, maybe we'll just watch him for another year. It's a lot of money. Yeah. I'm more wavering on him, and I don't know about Morgan either. I could definitely see the scenario where he goes. We'll talk about contract length when it comes to the relegation thing. Just quickly on that, Steve, and then we'll move on to if we do go down. But how are you feeling about if we stay up? What will it look like?
Well, I think everyone's saying it's inevitable that Anderson will go, and there's even talk that that's already lined up with Man City. That said, the last 2 seasons we've had, Murillo's definitely going to go in the summer. Morgan's definitely going to go in the summer. Neither of them went. But I think given the context of this season and the chaos around the club and the 4 managers and all the rest of it, I wouldn't be at all surprised if their agents and them personally aren't agitating for a move. But if you tied in with a contract, the club has got more control over it. If silly money comes in, the club are going to take it, particularly if we're under pressure financially. And so I would think Anderson definitely. The other 2 might depend on our performance over the next 12 games in the Europa League, and whether either of them make World Cup squads.
I will say, I think, and I don't know the answer to this, but I think the fact that we've got a different manager might change a couple of opinions. I don't know that, but I think they would have been wavering and thought, can I face 38 games of this? And now it might be a different option if we stay up, but I don't know the answer to that. But that's just the vibes that are certainly going around based on the media reports as well, that Marinakis consulted senior players and things that we've heard as well around how they were feeling about the manager. If we go down then, Mark, basically subject to Anna's question about what the team would look like next season. I've looked, part of it to me depends on contract lengths and who you have to cash in on. So before you come in, I would have done a graphic for this. I'm sorry to people, but I've just been so snowed under. But players who are out of contract in a year are Taiwo, Chris Wood and Matt Sells. So I think you'd have to sell Matt Sells plus the player who talks about. And then just for reference, players who are out of contract in 2028, Morgan, Callum Hudson-Odoi, Ibrahim Sangare, Ola Aina, Dominguez Yates, John Victor, De Silva Pereira, and then beyond that, players are 2029 or longer, so they have longer deals. So that just tees it up. But how many go for you, Mark, if the worst happens?
If we're relegated, it's easy to say who stays and who goes.
Yeah, who stays?
It'll be a massive clear out. I mean, if we're playing in the Championship, realistically, the only players that I can see us retaining are Yates, Hutchinson, maybe McAtee. I don't look at, Chris Wood possibly, but you'd think there'd be offers for him. You look at the back 4, there'll be Premier League clubs after all of those. They're outstanding Premier League defenders. You look at Gibbs White, Anderson, we've talked about. Sangare will go back to the continent. Dominguez will go back to Italy, I'm sure. You look around the entire squad, and it's very hard to make a case that any of those players will stay. The only ones I look at and think, well, who would take a step down to the Championship? Possibly Hutchinson, he's done it already. Possibly McAtee, he had a loan spell at Sheffield United and he was a key figure for them. So he would look at it and think, well, I can be the main player for Forest in the Championship, which he probably could be. So I think there's a couple we would retain. Yates, of course, as captain, I imagine. But it would be carnage. It would be mass exodus, surely, because these players, it tells you a lot about the shame of being in this position, that you look at our squad and think, who of that squad would actually want to drop down to the Championship and play a season in the Championship? It's not many because of the ability we've got. We've got a good squad, a lot of good players. And you look at Bakwa and Doy, they would go back to the continent. They'd be sold in swap deals or they'd be sold back to Italian clubs and so on, French clubs or whatever. Not many players would come with us to the Championship, in my opinion. We would either face an uphill struggle to convince them, or financially it would make sense to sell them on. So it would be a huge rebuild, in my opinion.
When I thought about it, I wonder if there's a couple of cases where this is a bit of wishful thinking, but maybe like a Milenkovic and a Nico who've got long contracts. It's not a World Cup year. They're safe in their national teams. Could we just persuade them to say, give us a year? And that they're the ones that I look at.
But if we get big bids, which we would get, Nico Williams is a top 5 fullback in the Premier League. Who's not, he's going to be, there's going to be 30 million quid in offer for him, I would have thought. So are we going to turn that down? Maybe. I mean, I think you're right. There are individuals who might say, yeah, I'll stay and do a year in the Championship. But if we get big offers for them, are we going to turn that down?
We've got so many good players. We don't. I agree. I think we have to try and keep some of them if we're going to bounce back. We're getting ahead of ourselves here, but we're just answering the questions. But yeah, I just wonder if there's one or two that we could just keep and build around. And if we could keep a couple of the back four, I don't think any of the midfielders would stay. I don't think Ndoye or anyone like that would stay. But yeah, Hutchinson, Abbott, Bindon, Jair Cunha. There's a lot of good young players bubbling away that I think we could plug into the team. We'd have to rebuild our attack and a couple of midfielders. Go on, Steve, sorry.
It'd be a test of Marinakis' policy in terms of sales and profit and loss and all the rest of it, because, he probably thinks we probably could withstand some offers. And I think a lot of it would depend on two things: who the manager was going forward, whether there was a real sense that we're going to come straight back up or we're going to have a really good go at it with a manager that people are buying into, and how settled people are. I think you've got to sometimes take into account that sometimes people are settled in a club and in an area, and they might want to stay around. And the third factor is there's always the option of a year's loan. I think Leeds did that when they went down. They loaned out.
They loaned out loads of players, like 5 or 6, didn't they? Yeah.
So that might be an option, gambling that we might get back up and then we could pull some back in.
Yeah, no, that is interesting. I hadn't thought that Leeds thing. I think they loaned out about 6 players, and some of them are back in the team, like Aronson and guys like that. So yeah, it really would be interesting, but hopefully it doesn't come to that, obviously. Right, next question. Bonjute, who's a channel member as well, and Capacity and Function, Edward, lovely guy. Given the recent changes in management, are there any players out in the cold you're anticipating a new look at? So the sort of winners and losers thing, Mark. There's a couple of obvious names here. I think one in particular who might get a look in. What about you? How are you seeing it?
Yeah, this is the reason I'm optimistic. In my opinion, Sean Dyche shrunk the squad down to players that would be effective in the way he plays. He didn't build his tactics and system to the players we got. He applied his principles and system, and those who didn't fit it didn't get a chance. So hopefully that changes under a new manager. And what I know of Pereira, if that is the case, he will do exactly that. He tends to be flexible and build systems around the talent he's got available, which you'd think is fundamental to football management, but never mind. McAtee, of course, surely has got to get more of a look in. There's talent there. He was never a Dyche player. I mean, you could have predicted it. It's funny, we made predictions like, Yates will be in the team when Dyche arrives. That was completely wrong, of course. Sangare was one player to improve under Dyche, and his fitness really improved and his performances improved with it. But the other thing we probably assumed is McAtee won't get a look in because he's not a Dyche player, and we were absolutely right about that. He's not a box crasher. He can't win the ball in the air, so he's not a number 10 that's going to raid the box and get on the end of crosses. What he is a crafty player who can operate in between the lines and in the tight spaces, and he can pass, he can score goals as well. He's a better goal scorer than Gibbs White, in my opinion, when you give him chances. So you think McAtee will be one that Pereira's looking at and going, that's a player which hasn't been embraced, nurtured and harnessed by the previous manager. I can get something out of him, and I think Pereira will have him very high on his priority. Cunha as well, a player that I think is superior to Morato, and if we do play back three, I'm not sure we will, but if we do, I'd like to think that Cunha will get a look in, because Pereira, when he plays the back three, he likes his wide centre-backs to go forward, and I kind of see it as Milenkovic in the middle and Murillo and the right-sided centre-back being allowed to wander into midfield and play high. And I think Cunha's very well suited to that. He's very comfortable on the ball. He's got good vision. That will be a really good step up for him. And then I look at Bakwa and Ndoye. we haven't really seen them. We haven't seen them given opportunities. I think Backwards' confidence was absolutely shattered when you hear the manager criticise individuals at post-match. As a winger, you don't take risks. You don't take your man on. You play simple back passes instead of playing risky passes. So, when you've got a manager doing that, it impacts on your flair players. And I think it had an impact on Backwer, who shrunk under Dyche completely. So I'd like to think that he will get more opportunities and more freedom to express himself rather than be scared of what criticism he's going to get post-match for an inept performance. He needs time. Ndoye, I think for me, he can play as an inside forward, but Dyche played him as a winger, and he's not a winger who crosses the ball. He just doesn't. We saw with the numbers. So can we find a new role for Ndoye and find a way to bring his talent in? There are loads of players in this squad that I think can grow under a new manager who were shrunk under Dyche. It's simple as that. So that's one of the reasons I'm optimistic.
I'm speaking to Pete and Dan later. They've both been looking at Pereira tactically. I've only had a very limited look myself, but as Mark says, he did have a success at the back three at Wolves, and he did sort of play 2-10s, which is why I'm sort of optimistic about McAtee potentially getting more minutes, playing that kind of right-sided or left-sided 10, if he goes that way. It'd be interesting to see what he does with the wide players and how he utilises some of them, because Hutchinson's played a lot of minutes as a 10 as well. So, yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how it shakes out. Just before I go to Steve, quick word for the Trent Nav. Next game is Fenerbahce, obviously. So if you're not in Istanbul with Steve getting drunk, then have a bit of free beer potentially at the Nav if you get there before 5:30. A free pint of Madri. Pete's Kitchen and Barbecue are open. I don't think Fothers is doing the build up, but I'll check about that. But obviously, you can watch it on all the screens, indoors and outdoors. Over the road. You don't need to book at the Nav, just wander in and enjoy it there. But you do need to, if you want guaranteed table service at Over the Road, do book. So click the link in the description for that. Right. In terms of Steve, I'll flip the question a little bit. Weigh in on players you're excited to see, but there's always losers when a new manager comes in. I think there's one really obvious one, depending on how we play. I'll see if you name him. But yeah, who are you thinking might win and might lose in this?
Well, I don't think the 6'7" striker is going to get many games. I think Jesus will be back up front. But you never know. I mean, stranger things have happened. He might be sort of come on for the last 10 minutes or whatever. I think the trouble is he's only got 12 Premier League games and 2 guaranteed Europa League games. So he hasn't got a lot of wiggle room in terms of experimenting. It's not like the start of the season and you've got cup games and you can think, well, I'll try this and I'll try that. He's got to kind of get to a settled side quite quickly. And, Fenerbahce away and then Liverpool at home in a great start to make experiments. So he probably will rely on a bulk of the players, that we know are our better players. But I think I agree with Mark that a lot of those other players will get a chance now, I think. And I think the crucial thing is, will he do the 3 at the back? And if so, Cunha gets a real chance, doesn't he? I would hope that he would have enough about him to see that Morata hasn't been a great option for us. Although, actually, a couple of games, he's done all right. But, yeah, I absolutely fascinated to see both how much Story puts in the Fenerbahce away in terms of the crucial players that we need on the pitch, and whether he's saving them for Liverpool.
Next question. We'll squeeze in a lot, as many as we can in the next 25 minutes or so. It's another question from Bonju, but a few people did ask it. I saw one in the chat as well. Apologies, I can't find it. I'll put it on screen if I can. About the new manager, assume this is Vitor Pereira. My presupposition is that even though the contract is reported to be valid until 2027, which I think is the case, the end of next season, assuming he does come in and nothing falls through, Vitor Pereira is here till the end of this season. What does he need to achieve to be our manager next season, Mark?
Well, keep us up, obviously. No question. For me, it's about connection. I think and I think in many ways Dyche made similar mistakes to Ange. Ange's big issue for me, obviously apart from not winning games, was his communication when he came in. He didn't get that right. He didn't make any connection with the fans whatsoever. I think he did connect with the players. I think the players wanted to play for him. I think he had some bad luck, but it was that connection with the fans and his obsession with Spurs and himself, which was identified as the fans as something which we couldn't live with given the results that he brought as well. So he got that wrong, no doubt about it. I kind of expected him to do that, and he did that. He did it at Spurs. He always talks about himself, and I think he took the job too soon. I think we've said that before. Dyche made the mistake as well in that his communication post-match was, I think, really at fault throughout, and particularly the Wrexham comments that he made. I think that he obviously believes in honesty, plain truths, and that includes open criticism of players and the team. I don't think that works anymore. I think that method of communication as a football manager is outdated, and it can only result in losing the dressing room. And I believe that's what happened. And as you've hinted, the players had a say in the decision. I think once you do that, it's the beginning of the end. So Pereira has to not do either of those things. He has to connect with the fans, and he has to ensure that his system of play and his post-match comments and his communication in and out of the dressing room connects with the players. If we see that, and let's be clear, I think, I was judging Dyche a lot on the performance and not so much on the points per game. And the reason for that is the performance is the window into the manager's methods. It shows you how his methods are being adopted by the team. Are they successful, the methods, and also are the players buying into it? If we see the performances lift, then we see evidence of the players connecting with his method of play, and we see that they're happy playing that way and developing and growing as players. If we see that and he connects with the fans and he gets results, he can be our manager long term.
I think we were talking before we started recording, Steve, when you look at his CV, he's had 14 clubs, and he's had a good record at pretty much all of them, bar, I think he had one in Germany, and I can't remember who it was, where he failed. Wolves last season, he failed, but did the job, which I think why he's been hired the season before. He doesn't stick anywhere. So I don't know how long-term he could possibly be, because it seems like he's quite a passionate character. So what are you feeling on his long-term prospects?
Well, I think the Forest fan base is as split as it's ever been. I think at the moment, people are turning on each other. And we've got to kind of get that spirit back of, we've got 12 games to stay up. And if he can tap into that, then that will be the first and foremost thing to be able to do, alongside getting the players' confidence up. I think if he keeps us up, there'll be enormous pressure on Marinakis to keep him, rather than get rid of him. The trouble is with that, you then go into the start of next season, you have a bad start, and then we're looking for a new manager again in October, November. And what you're going to have in the summer is potentially a number of managers in the market for a 2 or 3 year contract. Now, then I think a 2 or 3 year contract with Forest is worth the paper it's written on. But if there's anything at all in the idea that you could get somebody like a Marco Silva or Glasner, personally, I don't think they'll come to Forest in the current setup. But if one of them could, then I'd swap out, even if we stay up. But if he keeps us up, not just scraping up by a point on the last day, but comfortably with a couple of games to spare, and we make some serious progress in the Europa League, then I think there'll be enormous pressure for him to stay on.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how it pans out. Yeah. Just on Europa, just quickly, Steve, you're all in on it still then? Even with how bad it's going, you want to see a strong 11 in Fenerbahce?
Well, I mean, I'm bemoaning those 2 penalty misses, because we wouldn't have had to play the playoff if Morgan had scored those 2 penalties. We'd have had a 3 month. But I do think once you're there, you've got to try and win the game, and we're in a 2-leg situation now. So get a draw in Fenerbahce, bring them back here, get a win. It gives you another game, and, a fluke, you get past Betis or Midtjylland, it's a bit of a blow that's a choice in the next round, 2 teams that we've played before. But I suspect there'll be enormous pressure to carry on with the strategy, which is you save your best players for the Premier League, even though I suspect Marinakis would love a trophy.
What's your view, just quickly, Mark?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because when Dyche came in, he went strong straight away. I think he realised that he had to get a win on the board. So I wonder whether Pereira will look at it in the same way, as in, I've got to get a positive result, and a positive result will be a draw or obviously a win. So will he go strong with that in mind? I don't think we should. I think we should certainly prioritise the Premier League above everything. But I do wonder whether it being his first game, he'll want to make a statement with the players, with the fans, and get a positive result. So I wouldn't be surprised now that the 11 will be stronger under Pereira than perhaps it would have been under Dyche.
Over 500 people listening, loads of people listening with us the last few days. So thank you very much for that. Do hit like if you're around, and do hit subscribe. I haven't listened to this from John Needham. Highlights that Henry Winter's got a new podcast with Christian Persley, and he just says Villa was similar to us until they went all in to get a top manager in Emery. Obviously, the transition from Steven Gerrard to Emery was massive. So if we can get I don't want to say a better manager than Pereira, because I'm sure he's a good manager, but there probably are better managers out there. Pereira wouldn't have got this job, if we weren't in the circumstances. So if we can go out and get a top manager in the summer, if we stay up, then yeah, as I sit here right now, I still think that's the play, but who knows? Right, the chat's mostly debating why this is a negative topics. The reason it's negative topics is to ask people for questions. There were no positive questions, so strap yourselves in for the next two. Bonnie Bryn 14, channel member. At what point do we really start to question Marinakis? And then Robert Ray asks, why is Edu still in a job? Matt Reed asked me, and after this latest sacking, does it mean Edu should go? I can't think he was involved in the decision to recruit or fire Dyche. So if Marinakis is doing all this, what's the point in Edu? Steve, there's a lot of blame going around. It's a big topic. I think once you sack the manager, everyone's blaming. People look for someone else to blame. So the guns have turned inwards, probably more on Marinakis than I've seen, and certainly Edu's been in the firing line all season. Where are you at on that topic in general?
Yeah, I mean, I said on X the other day that you've got to look at what's happened across both the manager, the coaches, the owner, and the players. You can't exempt anybody from the mess that we've been in this season. But there is a sense of chaos around the club. You listen to respected people in the game who all think that we're heading in the wrong direction with 4 managers in the season. Now, we might get away with it, but it's still jury's out whether we will get away with it. And I suppose there is a bit of careful what you wish for, because there are some clubs that are even more appallingly run than Forest. And what you've got with Marinakis compared to some owners is a football-obsessed, passionate person that's put in a hell of a lot of his own money into the club to try and get the dreams that as fans we've all wanted, back to the Premier League, tick, into Europe, tick, buy big players, tick, tick, almost. Some of them have been lucky buys that have turned into brilliant players. But, I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon. I don't think he's looking to sell the club from, and you look at some clubs, massively established clubs that are chaotic behind the scenes, Spurs, Man U, Chelsea, So, but, and the other thing about Marinakis, it's a bit like Trump. He's never going to apologise, is he? He's never going to say, I've made a mistake. And that's the reality. But he has made mistakes. And it is right that fans say that some of these things have been mistakes. And clearly the interaction between Edu, Nuno, etc., at the end of last season, early part of this season, was a giant mistake. I think Marinakis should have got them both in a room and said, we're going to make this work. But I think his head had been turned by Postecoglou. And I think that was the problem he made. It must have been his impulsive decision to get Ange in. And that's where the season went wrong.
I'll throw in a supplemental question, Mark, that you can weigh in on what Steve said and weigh in on this one. This is a question from Steve, not this Steve, on Twitter. Will Forest ever build a sustainable Premier League identity, or are we always going to be in short-term survival mode? It's interesting that one of the teams that's really struggling this season is Brighton, who have that sustainable identity. So I guess there's no bulletproof way of doing this, but what do you make of the way we are doing it?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Steve's right, what he says there. I mean, I don't have the window into the back room stuff that I do of the pitch. Obviously, I mean, I can see with my eyes what's going on the pitch. I can base what I see based on my experience of Forest and football, make comments about that. It's very difficult to make comments about what's going on in the back room. None of us really know. Obviously, grievous errors have been made, right? And I look at it, if I'm putting a positive spin on it, I look at it as Marinakis makes these decisions out of ambition, passion for success. I see that his expectations are too high too soon. The things like we always win, etc. That kind of stuff. While some it's tub thumping and people might love it, I don't like it at all. I think that kind of demonstrates his eagerness for success, which just runs away with things, and I think clouds his judgment. And I think Steve's right. He wanted Postecoglou to take us to the next level. He didn't stop and think, and like, is Ange ready for that role after Spurs? And is the Spurs experience going to leave a mark on him? And are we going to get the best of Ange Postecoglou? And what players do we need to bring in that work for him? I think the transfer moves that we were making were aligned to Ange Postecoglou. People question Zinchenko, etc. He's a Postecoglou player, and I think that's why we got him. And so I don't know. I think he did get blinded by that, but it all comes out of that lust for success, which is just overrides everything, overrides better judgment. And it's interesting what Steve says about he's never going to say I made a mistake. It's a shame that, because leadership, good leaders do take ownership of mistakes and do admit their mistakes. And so I'd like to think that Marinakis, if he considers himself a good leader, and I'm sure he does, will take ownership and say, yeah, we made some mistakes this season and we're going to correct it, and this is what we're going to do. And whether Edu survives, I think it's not going to, no change is going to happen now, because focus needs to be on survival. But I'd like to think that the mistakes will be owned after the season, and steps will be taken to correct it, and hopefully then we can become a sustainable club in the Premier League. It's very difficult. That's a very difficult question to answer, because the Premier League standard is so high, and you can think that you've got a successful foundation to survive in the Premier League and thrive, but it's very difficult to do. And I think that's the mistake Marinakis is making. He thinks that we can achieve great things and European campaigns season after season very easily, and we can't. You have to build gradually. You have to have the foundation. He wants it now, and that's the mistake he made. And hopefully he learns from that, and if we stay up, he puts the foundations in place for us to build and survive in the Premier League and then grow as a Premier League club, rather than make wild decisions that get us there quicker that then backfire, which is, I think, what he's done.
I think, this is what I was going to say. Jackie said this. His recognition of an error is to take action, but then sometimes the actions to correcting a big mistake that create more problems, as we've seen with the managerial situations, cascaded, and it's a big factor in it. I also wonder, people talk about a long-term plan. I sort of think we are trying to have a long-term plan, because Edu's supposed to have been a long-term plan to build the brand. We've signed young players like Bakwa, McAtee, Anderson, Murillo. We've looked to the future as well, but then it's all done at the same time. The juxtaposition of that is, I want it all now. We've got to have it now. We've got to be in Europe. We've got to be winning the Europa League. And they don't all align, and it creates a chaos, and the chaos has cascaded. And it created a perfect storm last season where things went right. We got lucky with injuries. Everything was working. When he went on the pitch against Leicester, I didn't like it, and I think things went pretty wrong after that. And all this stuff about Taiwo, I'll never know. We can't, because it's catastrophic. You can't definitively prove he wasn't doing it because he was worried about Taiwo, but it didn't look like he was annoyed at the result at the time, I'll say. So there's everything swims together, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it creates a huge amount of chaos. And we've seen the flip side of it in 2 years, and no one thought we'd be here. And I think this is probably what happened, Steve, under this ownership. My long-winded point is, he's not going to change, is he?
No. And I'm having a quick look at the chat. I mean, some people will never criticise Marinakis because of the investment he's put in. And, only in the last couple of days have a few people started to say, there's some criticism here. I'm certainly not saying that Nuno did nothing wrong. I've seen that put in the chat as well. Clearly, there were issues with Nuno as well. And I'm not saying all was rosy towards the end of last season in terms of our performances and stuff, because they clearly dropped off. But, we've had a couple of crucial transfer windows where we've failed to bring in strikers. And I think that's last January, this summer really, and again this winter. And, goals make teams, don't they? And I think that I think you're right, Matt, that we have started to look for younger players and a bit of a development plan, but we seem unable to build get the big sign in for a striker and that we needed at crucial times to score goals. And I don't know what that's about, whether that's money or contracts or what it is. And the other thing that we know about Marinakis is he doesn't tend to want to spend a lot of money on a manager. He's kind of scratching around on who's out of work. So that's why this summer will be fascinating to see whether he rolls the dice again.
Yeah, there's no obvious easy answer with any of this stuff.
No.
So it's not all one person's fault, and there's good and bads to everything that we do, and we've just unfortunately seen a lot of the bad of it and pan out this season. Right, a couple more questions to get through. Colin, sorry, how many points would you like to see from our next 4 Premier League fixtures? Well, 12 obviously, but I know what Colin's saying here. We've got Liverpool at home, Brighton away, City away, and then Fulham at home. West Ham have got very similar fixtures to us. I think Leeds have as well. They're the main ones. Spurs are in there as well with very, very tough fixtures. So I don't know, Mark. I mean, it's just as simply a case of saying if West Ham we've got to match West Ham, I think, haven't we, no matter what they do.
Yeah, I think so. But I think when a new manager comes in, he's not going to be looking at it like that. He's going to be looking at it as in, I'm going to approach every game as a positive one and I get a result in every game. I think under Dyche, we kind of could look at the fixtures and go, well, they're the ones that we're likely to get something in, and those are the ones we're not. And strangely, I look ahead of the fixtures and think, well, Liverpool and City away, we've probably got more chance of getting something than Brighton away and Fulham at home, strangely, because that's just the way the players reacted to the way Dyche played. Under Pereira, I don't know. I mean, none of us really know what to expect. But I imagine Pereira's looking at it and going, well, I need to make an early impression. Fenerbahce is there to do that. But Liverpool at home, it's a great opportunity. Like, it's not that to me is a great fixture for Pereira to have. It's a home game, first of all. It's against a Liverpool side which aren't. They have vulnerabilities. We can win that game, and if we lose it or if we put up a good performance, I think he'll still come out of it with credit. So I don't think he can individually lose in that game. I think he'll go, I can have a really good go at that. And if I get a positive result, it's going to be great for me going forward and the team and the confidence that it builds. But if the team put in a good performance and we lose, it's not the end of the world, because then we can take that performance and build on it for Brighton. So I think the fixtures aren't too bad. Equally, City away, he'll look at that and think, well, I won't be expected to get a result there, but if I can take some confidence and a couple of good performances into that, who knows what we could do. I think the run that's important is Fulham, Spurs, Villa, Burnley, Sunderland away. That 5 that's the crucial period of the season remaining for us. Fulham, Aston Villa and Burnley at home, we have got to win those games. Simple as that. And he'll use the next 3 or 4 as a platform for that period.
Brighton's next game. Obviously, we play Liverpool and play Brighton. So the one game Brighton have before they play us is Brentford away, which is actually a really tough game. So yeah, if they could be under intense pressure. I've seen the first Hurtsler under pressure stories coming out. So it's going to be a real interesting dynamic. Just one slight bit of irony, Steve, is these are the next 4 kind of games that Dyche did thrive in by hook or by crook, and now we've hit reset again. How are you feeling about these next 4?
Well, I spent a bit of time this morning looking at all of the teams around us and what games they've got, and I came away from it thinking that it literally is between us and West Ham. Now, I know about the form of Spurs and Palace and Brighton and all the rest of it, but a lot of those teams have got to play Wolves and they've got to play Burnley and this, that and the other. I know we've got Burnley, but by and large, there's enough games for those teams to just get enough points on the ground, and they're already above us. So I went through our games against West Ham's games, and I got us both getting an extra 13 points, which would leave us on 40 and them on 37. I've got them winning 3 games and us only winning 2 games. I've got us only winning Fulham at home and Burnley at home, but quite a lot of draws. And, we are going to have to keep chalking those points up through draws if we can. And if we can go to Brighton and beat them, brilliant. But I'd take a point maybe now. I don't think we're going to get anything out of City. I'd love a point against Liverpool, but we've got to beat Fulham at home. We've got to beat Burnley at home. I'm not sure and until we see Pereira and what sort of team he's doing and what confidence the lads have got, because if their confidence gets back up, we have proven, those players have proven they can go to Anfield and win 3-0. They can go to Brentford and win 2-0. They can beat Spurs at home 3-0. There is talent in that squad. The worry is still where the goal's going to come from and who's going to be putting them in.
Whose dog's barking?
That's mine. Sorry. Can I ask Steve and you, Matt, if you're a West Ham fan or now and you look at it and see that we've sacked Dyche and we're bringing Pereira in, would you be happier or would you be more worried?
Well, I was talking to one this morning and he was happier. He said, "What is going on at your club? I think you've made it more likely you go down." I think that's the very common outside point of view. Like, you were doing all right under Dyche, you panicked, why didn't you stick? So there's that kind of view of, actually, if you watch the games, you might feel different. But if you do, a lot of Forest fans, like Steve, probably think, well, we have panicked. Go on, Steve. Sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, all of the commentators across the country have said that it was, they would have stuck with Dyche, or they think it's a mad decision. People on TNT, people on Match of the Day, sensible people like Henry Winter was against it. So I think there's that sort of view that we've panicked. The West Ham have got Leeds on the final day, at home. West Ham have also got Wolves at home and Palace away. So there are points that West Ham, I think, will pick up in battles. But they've also got a lot of tough games as well. They've got Liverpool away. They've got Man City. They've got Arsenal at home. And the other thing about this league is, compared to last year, there were times where people knew that they'd won the title, and so they were playing weakened sides towards the end of the season. I think we're going to have, the top 4 race, top 5 race, the title race, all go into the wire. And so I think there's going to be a lot of stuff on these games, which isn't good for us in things like Chelsea away, Man U away, Newcastle at home. Maybe not Newcastle at home, but certainly Chelsea and Man U both away. They're going to be wanting top 5, aren't they? So they're going to be really tough games. I can't see us getting loads of points in May, and that's what worries me.
The way I do look at it now, that it is between us and West Ham, because we blew the Wolves game so spectacularly, it makes it really hard. I just think Spurs will hire a manager, unless they make an awful appointment. I think they'll just win a couple of games. They'll be all right. Palace and Brighton probably only need to win 2. So if Palace don't beat Wolves, then they'd be more interested in them. Leeds, as Steve says, Leeds at home. They've got to play Sunderland, who are poor away. They've got Wolves at home. They've got Burnley at home. They've got Brighton at home. There should be enough games there.
Leeds are going to be fine, I think.
Yeah. So I feel like it's just a straight shootout, and it's not one I like right now at all, because Nuno's doing very well. So is that your view as well, Mark? It's us all.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been my view for weeks. I mean, and I said as well, it's a race between, can Dyche get us attacking better and creating more chances before Nuno can get them keeping clean sheets. Well, I think we've seen evidence that Nuno's beginning to improve them defensively. I always felt that West Ham could score goals. The problem is in defence. With us, it's perhaps a little bit the other way, but also we're woeful at set plays. And Slot this morning said, set plays are more important than ever in the Premier League. Since Dyche came in, we were bottom for XG from set plays. That's got to get better, right? So, I think that it is a straight shootout, but I think we've given ourselves a better chance now. I think all the things that the West Ham fans and the pundits have missed is the players were consulted. The player opinion played a role in the decision to dismiss Dyche. That could only suggest the players were not buying into Dyche. So continuing with a manager that the players don't buy into, that's untenable. You can't continue with that. And none of the pundits interviewed and asked about Dyche mentioned this. None of the pundits said, well, his record was great, his points per game, his manager of the month nomination in January. None of them said, oh yeah, but he's clearly lost the players. We could see it in the performances, and we can't even question it wasn't the case, because there's no question that Gibbs, White, Yates, they'd all have been asked. He wouldn't have made that decision without asking them. So if it's a given that the players have not spoke positively about Dyche and his tactics and how they bought into it, the decision is made. It's untenable at that point. You've got to get a manager in who builds that connection with the players. So I think we got a better chance because of that, surely, because not only are the players in the first 11 going to connect better to the tactics, hopefully, players outside the first 11 are going to get opportunities, as we spoke about earlier. So West Ham should be probably less optimistic about their chances now, in my opinion. And the pundits were just getting it wrong. They were just ignoring that massive factor that the players had lost faith in Dyche because of post-match comments and because of his system. And no one seems to mention that. They all talk about, well, he was Manager of the Month nomination. Oh, he's got a decent record, 18 points in 18 games. If the players are lost, you've got to change.
What do you think about player power like that, Steve?
Well, in the last few weeks when the speculation was happening and I was dead against the change, the only caveat I had was that if the players had basically given up on the manager and the coaching system and what they were being asked to do. I don't like it. You know, I'm old school in that way, that I kind of think that they're getting paid, you know, film stars' wages, and they should sort of knuckle down and get on with it and stamp their authority on the pitch where it matters. But, you know, if you've got an owner that's going to consult them, they're going to give their opinion, aren't they? And if what came out of that meeting was, you know, the training's crap, the set pieces are crap, the tactics are wrong, people are knackered before games, etc., then, you know, let's hope that this change is a positive one and people buy into it from the off, because we ain't got time for any more fanning about, have we? We've got 12 games. So I don't like it generally, the idea of player power in that respect, but that was the only caveat I had about why we would change, and that's clearly, I think, been a factor.
I think once you consult the players like that, then you've got to sack him, because if they say everything Steve says, Marinakis can't turn around to them and say, "Oh, I've just heard all that. Thanks, lads. Now piss off and get on with it," because they're going to be even worse.
Absolutely.
So he's got to do
and when Dyche is openly critical about the team and even individual players, can he not look at himself and think, well, I didn't do myself any favours by doing that? You're not winning the support of the players by criticising Bakra, McAtee, you know, players that he took off at halftime at Wrexham, to actually point his criticism at them. Not only loses their faith and their confidence is broken, also the rest of the team look at it and go, what's he doing? Why is he digging out my teammate? And in modern football, with social media, that bad sentiment spreads really quickly. He lost it at that point. And so even if the players did think, you know what, I'm buying into some of these tactics and buying into some of these methods, they didn't buy into that, that's for sure. And so that was a fatal error he made. And at that point, I thought that was the beginning of the end. And I think, you know, when you get in a situation where Marinakis has to call the players in, that's going to leave its mark, what he did and the comments he made post-match. So in a way, he can only blame himself, really, in my opinion.
I also think, in general, I would be of the principle players need to get on with it. That this is their manager. But we're in the situation where it's just a 12-game shootout. If the players aren't going to be at their best these 12 games, and then, you know, then I think you probably, in this instance, the right decision was made. I know Gary rang me on the final whistle. I've said this before, raging about the players. So I'm speaking to him on Monday. So he'll definitely put the counter argument of players have got in the sack, players have got to knuckle down, I think. So, yeah, right. Final thoughts? I think we've done all the questions. I'll just check. Any final thoughts, Steve, before we go? Will I check? I haven't missed any. I've missed one, but anything you want to add before I ask the last question?
Okay, well, what I'll say is I thought as fans, we stuck with them in the ground till the final whistle. Then obviously some people vented, not all of us, but some people vented. But there was a little incident after Hutchinson put the second corner into the side netting, where, you know, the Trent End gave him both barrels, or certain sections of it did, and Gibbs White really then started waving back at the Trent End and like telling us to shut up and support the lad and all the rest of it. The fan base, in my view, is as toxic as it's been for many years, and the example I give online recently is, you know, we've got people who are genuine Forest fans who are writing articles or speaking out, and then other people are piling into them and abusing them like, you know, it's just sport, you know. And I want to just say, people like Ellie, Matt Ford, Daniel Storey, they're entitled to their opinions. You might not like what they're saying, but, let's not tear ourselves to shreds over the next few weeks. We've got 12 games. We've got a Europa League campaign. Let's get behind the team in the stands, on and off the pitch. There'll be plenty of time in the summer to unpick what the hell went wrong. But let's hope at least we'll be doing that from a position of still in the Premier League.
I'll just put this question up from Paul, who's obviously a regular on here. If we were criticising Dyche to Wrexham comments, why a week later did we accuse him of sugarcoating that performance? Which way do we want it? My gripe with the fair point. My gripe with the Braga thing, and this is a general Dyche gripe, is praise for thee. Praise for me, blame for thee. Too often, there was never any kind of culpability that he might have completely screwed things up, and that was one of the times in Braga where he could have said, actually, that was a terrible performance. I've got to look at myself. Managers can play that card at least once or twice and buy themselves time, and he never played it.
So I'll give an example. And when he lost at Swansea, if you remember, we lost 3-2. He approached our fans the away end, pointing to himself, going, me. And he did that because he wanted them to focus the criticism on him. Post-match at Wrexham, Dyche dug out the players. And, Ange got a lot of criticism. And he did talk about himself too much, but one of the methods he uses is in post-matches, he just talks about himself. He never really talks about the team or the players. And it's quite effective in that way. Whether that's the intention, I don't know. But for all the criticism Ange got, he never dug out individual players. And it was a fatal error doing what he did. There's no question. A lot of us felt that at the time. And just the way, modern footballers react to that kind of thing. We heard from Sam Collins said it. We asked him that question. How would you have reacted? How would the dressing room that you've been in react to that? And it was a negative response. And this is someone who plays the game and been in Forest dressing rooms. So, it is different now. It's as simple as that. You can't.
But conversely, Perchy said he didn't mind criticism, but I suppose
that's 20 years ago, Steve.
Yeah, maybe that's even a generational thing. Yeah, Perchy's 40 and he's he only stopped playing. I think he was. I did have a quick look. I think he was playing for Wigan. Right? Yeah, I think he was playing for Wigan until like 2016. No, it would have been less than that. It would have been more recently than that. Yeah, maybe it's just a generational thing. I've asked Lewis and Kel the same question before. Players are just bred differently, whether we like it or not now. I think.
And it's maybe whether criticism is behind closed doors, whether it's one-on-one, whether it's collective. I think Dyche was frustrated after that game, wasn't he, at Wrexham, clearly, as we all were, and maybe thought he would have, the fans would get more on side if he sort of said, God, some of these players were awful, but clearly it backfired. Lesson learned for Dyche, I'm sure, or maybe it won't be. What surprised me about the Dyche reign is that we hardly heard from Stone and Wone, did we? I think there was one interview, newspaper interview with Wone or video interview with Wone, early doors, nothing from Stone. And he had them two as his flanks who have a massive Forest history. He chose not to use them. Maybe that's his style, but it might have been better PR for him. But it's gone, in it. The Dyche era is gone. The Ange era is gone. The Nuno era is gone. The Cooper. I mean, so many of us, loved what Cooper did. But we can't keep looking back. We've now got 12 games in Europa League, and just get on with a point in this guy. Hopefully, just seen online, Matt. One last thing, just seen online. Tottenham are not going to appoint a permanent manager. They're going to do a temporary to the end of the season.
That'll be Ryan Mason. I wonder who it will be.
No, I don't think. But they've made that decision, but not named who it will be.
Quite risky, I think that.
I think that's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah. I think that's risky. You make a dud appointment. Players think this guy's only here for a few weeks. Then, sort of what boat we're in the sense that they might sense Pereira's only here for a few weeks, but Pereira's got us more of a sense. I think he can do it. So that's interesting. Actually, that is interesting. I just don't look back. I know, but I'll just make one other point about Wrexham. Don't play James McAtee as a number 6. I mean, what was that about? Yeah, so there was too many bonkers things. Again, what Mark said about the pundits, give players the best chance to succeed. Playing James McAtee as the deepest midfielder is not.
Yeah, I mean, he could have said the post match could have been, I got it wrong. I thought the players that have come in tonight were ready to start. They obviously weren't. And, one or two things in the way the team was set up I got wrong. It wouldn't have been difficult to kind of divert it to him, and without undermining his position too much.
And the fans would have been receptive to it. I think so. Yeah.
He was so pointed, and said things he didn't need. He didn't need to say, "Oh, they come knocking on my door asking for chances, and now this is why I tell them." So why say that? What is it? What positive impact does that have, other than diverting blame? Basically,
I think he was annoyed. I think if he'd done the interview an hour later, he wouldn't have said it. But
yeah, but he's an experienced football manager. You can't play that card and then do that kind of thing. If you're experienced, you don't do that kind of thing. And other Premier League managers don't do it. Other top level managers don't do it. In any line of management or leadership, you do not individually blame. It's simple as that, and it's the same in football. So he made a mistake. And unfortunately, when the players are called into Marinakis' office to ask their opinion, it came home to roost, didn't it?
Yeah. There's one final question I'll answer myself, and then I'll throw it to Mark for final words. Ian Baker on Discord, gentlemen, thanks very much. How long do you think it will take us to get back to the Premier League, and would you even want to? And the would you even want to bit is what I wanted to answer. Because if we go down, I'll be absolutely desperate to get back to the Premier League. Yeah. It's been really tough, but it's been so good when we have those big wins. And there's always that hope that it'll come off and come together. And we were so close to Champions League, and that's another sliding doors moment, obviously. But yeah, if the worst happens, I'll be desperate to get back, because even though we've been in the arse end of the league battling for 3 of the 4 years, I've still loved it so much more than the Championship, I must admit. Even though there's things I hate about the Premier League, which I hate about modern football in general, about VAR, and I do find some of the games a bit boring and tactically, and I find some of our games boring as hell. So I'm hoping that changes as well. But yeah, if we go down, which I'm still not sure we will, obviously, I will be desperate to get back in. Mark, final words to you?
Yeah, I mean, that's tough, isn't it? If we do go down, I think it's either 1 season or 10 seasons, isn't it? You either do it in one because you retain players, you invest in the right way, you make the right signings. Loan signings are always really, really important, as they were under Cooper. So I think that if we did go down, I'd like to think that Marinakis would show every bit of determination to bounce straight back up, and we'd get behind the team, fill the ground every week, and we'd do it. But if we didn't, then it's a struggle. It's very, very difficult. I think Steve's words about uniting the fan base are inspiring. I think that's absolutely right. We've got to do that. We've got to. This is a new manager now. I mean, we don't know what we're going to get. It may not be better results or better performances than Dyche, but I think we give ourselves that chance now. If indeed the players weren't connecting to the system, if indeed that Pereira can come in and get something out of our set plays, if indeed he can bring some players into the squad, into the lineup that were being frozen out somewhat by Dyche's methods, then there's a chance. We've given ourselves a chance now, in my opinion, and as a fan base, we've got to get behind that, and we play a crucial role, of course, for the matches at the City Ground. So we've got to be one voice, trying to do all we can to get us over the line for survival.
Yeah, very true. I'll be at the Liverpool game, which I'm very much looking forward to now. As Mark said, I think it's a really interesting game where we could definitely take it to them, and it's not the worst first fixture to start with. I kind of would have loved it to be Wolves, but I didn't think we should have sacked Dyche before the game because that was a big risk. But yeah, we are where we are, certainly. Right, if you've enjoyed that, do us a favour, hit like, hit subscribe, consider membership or Patreon, and do hit like, as I say, because there's 600 people with us almost, which is brilliant. We are back tomorrow, even though it's a Saturday, because I'm going to do something on Vitor Pereira and his football, which Mark touched on with Pete and Dan, as mentioned. So we'll have a bit on that, and then we'll be back on Monday after that. Steve, thank you very much.
I enjoyed that.
That was good, wasn't it?
That's good.
Mark, thank you.
Yeah, no, great to see you, Steve. And it was a good set of questions, and it wasn't all negative because we talked about players coming back into the squad, and as I said, there's optimism and room for optimism. We've just got to get behind the team and the new manager and hope the change is a positive one.
Yeah, the tenor of the questions is going to be negative when you just sacked your third manager of the season and you're 3 points above the drop zone. So it's pretty unavoidable. But I think people enjoyed it. Hopefully,
get a decent result against Fenerbahce and hold Liverpool to a draw, and we'll all be smiling.
Yeah, next time we do these, hopefully the questions are much more upbeat about looking forward to next season with optimism. Certainly, right. Lovely, that's comment to finish on in the chat. There you go. You can't get rid of me because there's no podcast without me, because I organise it all. So there you go. Right. Thanks very much, everyone, apart from that guy. Have a good day. And if we don't see you tomorrow, we shall see you soon.